Hi guys, it's Debbie, and today I would like to speak about a topic which is quite different from my usual videos about movies or TV series. I have been receiving many lovely comments here on YouTube or my other social media asking about my nationality, asking if I am English, or why there are Italian subtitles on all of my videos, ask if I live in the UK or if I live in Italy, and so on. I was born in the heart of England from a British mother. I speak fluent English on a daily basis, but my father is from Sardinia, an island off the coast of Italy. So Italy has been my home for over 20 years. So a huge ciao to all my Italian subscribers which are watching in this moment. I speak fluent Italian. Actually, in my family we speak both English and Italian. I am bilingual. I can easily switch from one language to another. Many Italian friends have told me how complicated English is for them, but trust me, the Italian language, and in particular Italian grammar, is on a totally different level. There are sentences which are organized in an inception style with like 10 subordinate clauses, and nearly all verbs have some sort of irregular past tense. The easy aspect of speaking Italian is that nearly everything is pronounced how it is written, on the contrary of English. I have attended a year of university and worked in Italy, so this makes my Italian grammar skills, or in general my knowledge of the Italian language, slightly better, or let's say slightly more refined than my English skills. I'm not saying I can't speak English, obviously, but I often make small mistakes which I would never make in Italian. You probably heard some of these small flaws in many of my videos. They are usually either grammar errors or mistakes in the order of the words in a sentence, often because my mind creates adaptations of Italian figures of speech which might not exist in English. This is one of the major problems when you are bilingual, speak more than one language, or when you are learning a new language. If you don't nourish and develop all languages on the same level, you'll end up losing some knowledge, you'll end up struggling when speaking and reading, and in general you'll end up making mistakes. There actually was a period in my life in which I unfortunately completely set English aside. This was when I was in high school, when I was more or less 16, and I was studying Italian, German, French and Latin for hours on end on a daily basis, and most of my friends spoke Italian, so I just lazily stopped reading in English, watching movies in English, and I just spoke and read and watched content all day long in Italian. If you are learning a new language or you are bilingual, I would strongly recommend giving equal importance to all the languages you speak. Always refreshing your knowledge and practicing as much as possible. You could maybe try setting your social media or your devices such as your phone or your computer in a different language, or deciding to watch a film or reading more in another language. In this way your brain will adapt and train while you're on Facebook. Another issue when speaking more than one language is that as a child you feel the total pressure of sounding totally weird when pronouncing something correctly. Now, my Italian side of the family comes from the centre south of Italy, which you can mentally portray as the typical idea everybody has of Italy. Huge families, industrial sized meatballs or spaghetti meals, everlasting good weather with scorching sun, and nonnas handing out huge ice creams to you and your countless cousins. Now just imagine being in this super stereotyped location, bang in the middle of the summer, eating pizza by the beach with 100% Italian individuals, and suddenly you have to say something in English and you are suddenly caught by the realization that whatever you will say, you will sound like the Queen asking her butler to bring her a cup of tea. Or you might be feeding the swans in your green wellies under the shade of Windsor Castle in the UK, and suddenly you'll have to say something in Italian, and you suddenly realize that whatever will come out of your mouth will only sound like "It's a Mario," hand gestures included. So if there are any bilinguals out there, you will know the stealthy childhood technique of simplifying everything you say, speaking in your native language but with a different accent to avoid the laughter. Obviously then when you grow up you just realize this is paranoia created by peer pressure, and there's nothing to be ashamed of, but there have been some pretty funny situations. For example, when people used to ask to translate the lyrics of a song that was playing in that moment, and I as a child couldn't make out even one sentence from that song, and I felt the pressure of letting my fellow primary school mates down. Or when I was speaking a mid-sentence, I realised that I didn't know how to say a certain word and I could only think of a gazillion synonyms in the other language. Or when my brain just created random new words by patching together the two languages. I'm pretty sure my siblings and I created a whole new batch of Italian verbs. Also, kids in school used to come up with complicated questions such as, in which language do you dream? And I, 9-year-old Debbie, was caught by the premature existential crisis because I had no idea. But as I said before, growing up, you move past these problems, more or less. I don't have a particular preference when choosing between speaking English or Italian. I tend to speak more in English just because most of my work is in English and I read in English and watch content in English. But at the same time, I feel there are certain emotions and feelings which I can only 100% express in Italian. I guess each language has its own nuances and every different person tends to adapt to them based on their own personal experience and their way of being. But what about films? I prefer watching them in their original language, whatever it is, because it keeps the final effect as pure and complete as possible. But there have been occasions on which watching the product dubbed in Italian before watching it in English has helped me understand the plot better. For example, Trainspotting because of the strong Scottish accent, or even TV series, for example Doctor House. Italian culture and British culture are both beautiful in their own way, just as their languages. I know I'm very lucky to experience two different and contrasting lifestyles, so I'd be more than happy to create other videos speaking about living in Italy or being British or learning new languages, so let me know if you would like to see more content like this. Also let me know if you're a fellow bilingual or if you're learning a new language. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe and I'll see you soon. Bye!